Oh, hey there. I like a good book. Do you like a good book? Yeah, who doesn't? But you know, it's really hard to find a good book sometimes. That's why I like to patronize my local little free library. Come on. Now, when I decided to build my own little free library, naturally I couldn't just go with a standardized box or square or anything like that, what a sane person would do. I had to make a Tiki-fied A-frame. There's interesting books you find in these. Anyway, come along and I'll show you how I put this thing together. For this project, I'm using a sheet of plywood 8 feet long by 4 feet across at the lumberyard where I got it. They split it in two for me lengthwise, which is a service many lumberyards will offer. This section of board right here, I am going to split down the middle again, so I have two equal parts of 4 foot long wood, 4 foot by 2 foot. This is going to form the roof of my little free library. So to do that, I've marked the center. I have this straight edge clamped down, so I will keep a straight line, and I'm going to use the basic circle saw to slice it in two. Now for this next part, I'm going to have to go freehand without a straight edge to guide me. The roof is going to go kind of cantilevered from 2 feet wide at the top to 20 inches at the bottom. So it's going to cut in a little bit, and I have marked the 4-inch to cut from here, and at the very top it's going to go flush, cut flush with the edge. So I'm going to follow the line as best I can. With both sides of the roof cut, they are going to come together in an A-frame at a 60-degree angle. So to facilitate that, I've set my table saw at a 30-degree cut. I'm going to run both top roof lines through, so each 30-degree cut will come together to form a 60-degree angle. Okay, confession time here. I am not a very skilled woodworker, which many other woodworkers on YouTube have been happy to point out in the comments. So in this instance, the cut I'm trying to get 30 degrees, so I can have a 60-degree angle on my A-frame. I'm not getting on my table saw. Near as I can tell, the way I can get the 30-degree cut is if I run the plywood through vertically to get the 30-degree cut. My math skills aren't great. I've tried different angles. I've tried circle saws. I have failed repeatedly. So it's not all Skittles and beer in Lagoon of Mystery world. That said, I am doing the hard way workaround. I have a power planer, a hand planer. You can do this with a hand tool planer, but I have marked the angle that I need. I've got an angle, it needs to be about twice that, and so I'm going to go over that with this power planer to shave off the excess wood so I can get the plywood to come together in the 60-degree angle that I need for my A-frame for this little free library. Who knew it was going to be so difficult, huh? Of course, nothing is ever easy. All right, so here we are through. It is inelegant, but you can see I have planed it off, and it is more or less the angle that I need, 30 degrees off there, 30, and we're gonna have 60-degree A-frame. That was more trouble than it needed to be, but you know, live and learn. Okay, so you see I have the A-frame fitted together. I am going to glue these two pieces, but that is not going to be structurally sound. So I have cut this brace, I suppose. It's 17 inches long. That gives 1 inch in the back for plywood to go over to close it, and plenty of overhang over the front for the doors. So when I insert it in here, I need to screw in screws to supplement the glue, right? So the center of my brace comes down 2 1/4 inches. And so I've drawn this line so I can mark where the screws go. And the screws are going to go on either side, and I'm going to stagger them so I don't have to worry about the screws running into each other and mucking things up. And that'll give me a pretty solid A-frame with glue on all the surfaces. It'll hold it pretty darn tight. Now that the A-frame is put together, I need to install the shelving. And for the shelving, I need to have braces on the side. In order to make those braces, I'm taking this 2x4, I'm going to cut it into 17-inch lengths. Then I am going to use my table saw, split it in two. Each one of those lengths I'm going to split in two. And once I have those sections split in two, I'm going to set the blade at a 30-degree angle and slice each one of those sections so it has a 30-degree offset. What that is going to end up doing, which you'll see, is when it goes into and attaches, when I attach that to the A-frame, this is going to give a purchase that is parallel to the ground. So I will be able to lay the shelving in flat on each level. And yeah, I think it's gonna look pretty cool. All right, folks, it is like 98, 99 degrees Fahrenheit here, humidity somewhere around 80%. It's brutal hot, so I don't want to stay out in the sun any more than necessary. Unfortunately, I have to set up out here because we're going to create some sawdust. The bottom shelf of the little free library is 41 inches across, measures 41 inches at its longest point. Because I have a 90-degree angle, not 90 degrees, 60-degree angle on the A-frame, I need to bevel in here, cut in a 30-degree edge on the edge of the shelf so that it'll sit flush with that A-frame. So I've measured it out, have my circle saw set for a 30-degree cut, and I've locked in my straight edge right here to make sure that I get a straight, even cut and I don't wander around and it gets kind of wonky. Nice. Now I'm going to measure out 41 inches and cut the other end. Whew. That's Not nearly as hot when you're in the shade, but it's still pretty warm here. I'm gonna push through just for you folks. Now I have the A-frame laid out here on the floor, and here is my bottom shelf. Notice I have the mounting braces here just pinned to the side, and what this is going to do is come in and fit in flush right here. So this is proof of concept. It fits, it looks good. Now I am going to attach these mounting braces directly onto the shelf before I mount them onto the A-frame, and we will be off to the races. So I need to secure these mounting brackets onto the shelf, and I suppose I could mount them onto the A-frame first, but I think this will probably be easier or more straightforward or whatever. I'm just going by gut here. You can do it however you want. First, I am going to use wood glue. This is Titebond 2. Since this is going to be outside, Titebond 3 would probably be better since it has more moisture resistance, but Titebond 2 should be plenty good. I'm going to apply a generous amount, not necessarily going to overdo it, but a generous amount onto this flat, and lay it down here flush-ish with that 30-degree cut. I'm going to use the straight edge to make sure they line up as accurately as possible. For both sides. Now, Belle, hush up. Now I'm going to take these clamps and just press it in tight to hold these in place. And you gotta be a little careful because they will slide around with the glue. All right, so the glue is not going to be working on its own. What I'm going to do now is drill some pilot holes. I'm gonna mark the edge of the support beam right there. I'm gonna mark spaces for 3 pilot holes going through the thickest part of that mounting brace that I have. Now we add the screws. Okay, now we repeat on the next side, and once that's done, we mount it to the A-frame. It's kind of go time now. I have the base shelf mounted on shims at the bottom because it isn't entirely flush with the back of my A-frame per my design. So I have it in place. What I'm going to do is apply glue to each side, and this is where it gets tricky, and then I'm going to come around and drill a hole on either side and screw it in to hold it secure before I come back around and finish screwing it in securely with about 5 screws per side. Screws are going to provide the most amount of support. The glue is just going to be secondary. Like I said, I'm a belt and suspenders kind of guy, so we'll see how this works out. I have lines drawn on here to guide me where these need to go. And they're lining up pretty good right now. So, fingers crossed. Here we go. It'd be nice if I had two drills, one for screws and one for drilling, but I don't, so we make do with what we have, huh? One, I'll switch back at the other side. Okay. Now we've got these anchored in place. I can set it upright and work from there without these weird, crazy, difficult angles. Now, one thing that has bothered me about some little free libraries is that they don't have enough shelf space for large format books. So I want to not have to deal with that, take that into account with my build. So I have this Oceanic Art collection, which is one of the largest that I have, like a 3/4 inch board underneath it to give it a little space, and mark that there. Now, how deep is this bottom shelf going to be? Well, let's measure it and find out. Ooh, that's going to be 14 inches deep. That's one heck of a deep shelf. Bring on your large format books. Now that I have the shelves installed, it's time to pull them out. At least the middle two, anyway. That's because I have to make the back for our A-frame. And for that, I have this sheet, half sheet really, of 1/4 inch plywood, outdoor rated pine. So I could take all the measurements of this and transfer them onto the plywood and then cut it out, but I'm going to do something much more simpler. Watch. By laying the plywood down here on the ground, I can set the A-frame on top of it and just trace the outline of the cuts that I need. It's pretty straightforward, and it will conform exactly to the nuances and variations of the A-frame. Lift it up. I've got the perfect triangle pattern drawn to spec. At this point, I use my circle saw to just cut along the lines. You want to cut on the outside up to the line. You don't want to cut the line itself. Go slowly, go straight, and cut up to the line, not over the line. Okay, we have the back cut out. Now we're going to lay it in place. Now I'm going to go through and mark where all the shelf strut supports go on the back side, on the back panel. That way I can drill screw holes in the back panel accurately, and I will be able to attach it back. You'll see, it'll make sense when I'm done. At this point, I am going to coat every surface of wood with Australian timber oil. So far this is performed very well for me. It's a combination of penetrating oils and spar urethane, so not only does it go into the wood to protect it from the inside, it also forms a cured film finish on the surface to protect it. It's somewhat UV resistant, somewhat water resistant. It's pretty good all around. This is where our details that we're adding take it from being just a square wooden box into being a tiki space. I have a lot of leftover woven bamboo panels from the build out in the Lagoon of Mystery. I like these. They're kind of evocative to a degree of Lahala matting. It's a herringbone pattern, and I think it works a lot easier than Lahala matting, and in theory it's more durable as well. So I have a significant amount left over from my Lagoon of Mystery build, including one full 4x8 panel. And so I'm going to take this back panel for the little free library, the big triangle space, line it up along the straight edge right here, pencil, mark the edges, and with big tin snip scissors, cut out the space to fit. I've got liquid nails, exterior extreme heavy duty. That's because this is going to be outside. It's not going to be climate controlled. It's going to be partially exposed to the sun and the wind and the rain. I don't want this to fail, so I'm using the heaviest adhesive I can find, the strongest, most durable, and I am just zigzagging this out. Now we roll and position this bamboo panel into place. I took some of the offcut from the main plywood panel. I cut it into a 2-inch wide strip lengthwise. Then I trimmed it to fit. And this is going to be the central the central column of the little free library. Because of the A-frame triangle shape, I can't have a single big door that opens because geometry and stuff. So what I am going to do to work around that issue is have 2 triangular doors from either side, and they're both going to open outward towards the center. So the handle's going to be here. When they open up, they're going to come this way, and they won't interfere with any of the overhang or the decor or anything like that. That is looking good. And now you can see, basically, it's taking its final form. It's not anywhere near finished, but you can see how it's going to look and the method to my madness up to this point in time. So, While I am waiting on the last of those bamboo panels to dry in the A-frame itself, I'm going to turn my attention to the shelves and get them taken care of. I don't want just raw plain wood, even with the finish on it. So what I'm going to do, the notion I have taken in my head, is use this bamboo tambour and cut it out and line the shelves with it. This is a green. I used a tan tortoiseshell on my tiki bar for the wainscoting area. This is green, a little bit different style and tone, but I think it'll give a nice contrast with the yellow and earth tones in there. And on the back, see, these are strips of bamboo. On the back, it's held in place by a thin weave mesh fabric. And so that gives it flexibility. So what I'm gonna do is flip this over. Get the length of this in place. Let's see, this right here. Line that up, and on the back side, take the knife. And what's great about this is this fabric is super easy to cut. So find where that goes, and yeah, this to the side, and just slice down the length of it. I have this the right size for the depth. It's gonna go on like that. See that? Looking good, huh? So I need to figure out the lengthwise, because the A-frame is at an angle. The top is a little bit less lengthwise than just being flush. I hope that makes sense. I'm probably babbling. I'm gonna mark this right here. The cut I'm going to make is probably about 1/8 of an inch narrower than the surface of the shelf. That's so it can slide in and not rub up against either one of the A-frame panels, A-frame roof lines that's going up there. Rolling this back up. Find where my mark is. My mark is right there. So what I'm going to do now is use this fine tooth dovetail saw. It's got a very fine array of teeth on here, very small, very sharp. And as I've said before, bamboo likes to do nothing more than splinter. So by sawing with this, that's going to minimize any splintering of the bamboo. To attach the bamboo tambour panels to the shelving, I'm going to go back to the old standby and use the liquid nails on it. Pretty much the same process I used to attach the bamboo weave paneling onto the sides of the A-frame. This is 2 triangular doors with weird angles, and so I haven't really planned out how I'm going to do this ahead of time, but the one thing I do know is that I have to have accurate measurements for each side. In order to get the proper angle on this to cut for the door, I'm taking this piece of cardboard and I'm just gonna trace the angle right here. That way I'll be able to get it exactly not have to worry about measurements. Let us see now if my cut is proper and sufficient for it'll fit. Oh yes, it is perfect. I'm going to attempt to join the door frame using dowels, which I've used before, but I'm not super experienced with, and I'm not getting into cutting dovetails or anything like that because, you know, I'm not a great woodworker. Now I've got the join anchor secured right there temporarily. I'm going to use the drill to drill the hole for the dowel. Okay, and you see with the dowel drill, there is a stop on there, so you know how deep to go. Now, so I am inserting this dowel in here using Tight Bond 3 on the edges. Now I'm going to line these up and insert, push it down. All right, now we're going to let this dry and solidify and build the rest of the door. Now that the door frames are cut, I am going to get triangle sections of plexiglass to inset in here to ensure the plexiglass stays, you know, secure. I am going to mark 1/4 inch along the interior edges of this all the way around, and I'm going to use a trim router to cut a rabbet little squared section throughout the interior edge to set the triangle plexiglass window into. Then I'm going to come back across the top with a thinner section of western red cedar to cover it up and anchor it in place. Now I am going to take my sheet of plexiglass, mark it, get it set here in the corner, which is a right angle, not a perfect right angle because I'm not that good of a woodworker, but I've got it flush in these two sides. Now I have to get the final section of this marked, and so I am taking a straight edge and Sharpie. I'm going to mark the line where I'm going to cut. I apologize for the noise next door. Folks are running around maniacs with their kids, having all sorts of fun. At least it sounds like fun. I hope they're not getting murdered. I've got the plexiglass tightened down with clamps along with the straight edge. It's a long aluminum ruler square that I have. I have the ruler, the aluminum straight edge, up against the line with the window covered by the aluminum straight edge. What this allows, this is a reason, so when I'm cutting it, and I'm using this barbed plexiglass cutter, when I'm pulling this way, if I slip and veer out, it's not going to mar the surface of the window. Just basic thing. Also, in case it's not obvious, I'm using the corner right here, so I only have to make one cut. Okay, so you can see I've got a score line going straight down the side of that. So I'm going to turn this piece of plywood that I was using as a base on its side and use the smooth edge. I'm using the smoothest edge
straight cut right here. I'm going to place the score right on there. I'm going to push down, so we should have a clean break. I hope you got a good angle. Line it up and pop. There we go. It'll sit. Beauty. It's right in there, perfectly flush. No real tiki build that I am involved with is going to be finished without a significant amount of labor-intensive routing and carving designs on it, and this little free library is no exception. I am falling back on my very first router trim pattern, the triangles, and I have made myself a template of the alternating direction line triangles, and I am drawing this onto the outward facing trim pieces. This will guide me as I use my Dremel and Cutsall sphere bit to carve the straight lines. This is so small I'm not going to be able to use a straight edge like I do with my palm router, and indeed the palm router is even too large for this project, so I'm going to have to freehand it with the Dremel, and we'll see how that turns out. The other significant trim effort is going to feature my other design. I mean, these aren't original to myself, but these are what I've been using. It's the spiral representing waves. Now, this is a little bit more challenging for me, but these are the trim pieces that are going to go on the outside of the roof line of my A-frame. And I've decided that I want to go with the spiral wave motif for those. Because of the thickness of these doors and the odd angle of the triangle build, the topmost point of the triangle is catching on the top of the frame when I try and open it. So I need to shave some off of this corner so it can open and close unimpeded. What I'm going to use is my electric planer to shave off an angle on this side. I could use a power sander on this. If I wanted to go old school, I could probably use a chisel, a rasp, something like that, but I'm going to try and use this just to make it expedient. I have decided that I want to have handles on either side of the little free library on the door so people can slip their fingers in and pull it open just to make it easier. And I want to carve these and make them decorative in fitting with the tiki motif. So I went to the wood pile in my garage and I selected a suitable piece of mountain juniper. We call them cedar around here. Nice and thick. I cut it to length. I split it down the middle and I stripped all the bark off. And the end result is these two 4.5, 5-inch pieces of mountain juniper wood, which, you know, in the past I have made a bunch of Christmas ornaments, the Tiki Bob and the Vanuatu ornament and stuff. I really like it. It's not super hard, but it's hard enough where it keeps detail. So for the handles, I don't want a handle that goes all the way through because it's going to be up against the roof so people can't get their hands under the A-frame. Instead, I'm doing a carve out on the side so they can just slip their fingers in and use that to help pull it open. So I've marked the section that I intend to cut, and I'm using my Dremel and this Cutsall burr. It's a carve-out wheel. A lot of people use these types of wheels for carving out spoons and bowls, and for this I think it'll work quite nicely to carve out this hollow in each of the handles.
Finally, at long last, we're ready to start assembling the doors for good, permanently. Thank goodness. I mean, geez, this has taken forever. So what I'm doing is taking Type Bond 3, which is a high-end wood glue that is water resistant, because again, this is going to be outside, and I am squeezing a little bit into the holes that I've pre-drilled and taking the dowels and inserting them into said holes. Now I'm taking a rubber mallet and just tapping it in to make sure that it's set all the way. You don't want to use a metal hammer because you don't want these dowels to be deformed, otherwise they're not going to slot into the other holes that we made on the adjoining pieces of wood. And what's going to happen, these dowels are going to absorb water from the glue and swell. So in addition to the glue holding fast the wood, it's also going to swell up and jam into the hole that we drilled, making a tighter fit and a more secure bond. As we're going to fit the door together and glue it up, we need to insert the plexiglass and need to peel the protective film off the plexiglass before we permanently install it. Films on both sides. Slot it right into the router depression. Perfect fit. Now, because the stand for the Little Free Library is going to be sunk in the ground with concrete, I'm using pressure-treated pine right here, pressure-treated lumber, which resists rot, but it's not entirely rot resistant. So what I'm going to do is coat the part that goes in the ground with Flex Seal liquid rubber, and this will insulate it from water intrusion and slow down that decomposition process even more so than the pressure-treated lumber would resist on its own. I've cut a length of tar paper for the roof that I'm going to put down on here. It stretches across the top and over the other side, seamless. And I'm not getting fancy, I'm just using staples to anchor it in place. Now I'm using a utility knife to cut the tar paper flush with the edge of the roof line.
And now we've come to that very special part of every episode of Moment of Tiki where I make the mistakes so you don't have to. And boys and girls, this is a good one. See, I carved this trim piece to go along the roof line. It's very nice, it's got spirals. You know, I like spirals since I've gotten over my fear of them. And it looks very fetching, right? And I also designed it to hang down from the roof line to act as a little weather drip shield. Unfortunately, I failed to account for the door, and it now blocks the doorway. Now, this is where professional woodworkers and even competent amateurs at home are laughing their butts off at me, because they would have figured this out long before by doing a blueprint. And I didn't do a blueprint. I don't really do SketchUp or any of these things. I kind of wing it by the seat of my pants, to mangle a metaphor. So what I'm going to have to do to fix this, and I thought about trimming some of this, but I didn't want to cut any of this back. It wouldn't look nearly as good. What I'm going to do is just elevate it and have it flush with the bottom of the roof line. That way it can open and not be obstructed by the trim. Unfortunately, that creates its own problem, because now my trim isn't long enough to extend the rest of the roof line. So what I'm going to do is make an 1.5 to 2 inch extension, carve it with the Dremel, torch it, stain it, all 9 yards, just so I can make up for my mistake down at the bottom end. You know, live by the seat of your pants, die by the seat of your pants.
Whew. I don't know where y'all are, but it is hot and humid here today. But I'm trying to push through to get this finished, because I've been working on this little free library way too long. One of the last pieces I'm going to do is install this ridgeline trim, which I haven't done yet. One of the problems is that since I made an A-frame, it's a point, so there's no real resting place for it to be stable. So what I'm going to do, I've cut 2 parallelograms right here, and what I'm doing with these is going to install them on either side of this peak, giving a flat surface for that ridge to rest on, along with an undercut here for the thatch to go up right up against and prevent any water from leaking underneath. So I'm taking a drill bit and drilling right down the center. Now I've got 1.25 inch finishing nail, and it's galvanized. You want to make sure it's galvanized so it doesn't rust and ruin your build if it's going outside. And using the pilot hole, just tapping it in there to anchor this in place.
We are ready to install the roof ridge line carving onto my A-frame little free library. I'm so excited. This is the last big piece of decoration to go on, and yeah, I'm ready. The way I'm going to attach it on the front, because I had to, you know, move these A-frame carving pieces up because I screwed up earlier, is I'm using dowels. I've drilled holes in here, and so we're going to use wooden dowels to connect all of this, and using Titebond 3 Ultimate. This is the waterproof glue, very strong wood glue, and we're going to get it in and secure it right in front with a lot of that glue, and that's going to hold it in place. Now, for the back trim, I am going to resort to pilot holes and the galvanized nails that I used to attach the piece on the side before. So what I'm doing with this, I am just drilling at an angle into the base wood underneath. And with that nail hole drilled, take the hammer and just tap it into place. Use my nail set to get it anchored in properly. We're gonna do that on the back side here and all the way down so that this ridge piece doesn't just pop off at the slightest provocation. But again, it doesn't have to be load bearing, so I don't have to anchor it, really, really strong, just enough to keep the wind from blowing it off, essentially, or the stray bird perching. Yeah. All right, gang, this is the part where we turn this into from a roadside tiki stand into an official little free library. So, woohoo! Got our charter number 190423. We are legit, not just a pretender. Woo! Ain't that a beauty? So, I don't know about you, but I am thrilled with the way this came out, despite all my various setbacks and difficulties and problems and screw-ups that were entirely my fault. As I say, I'm not a professional woodworker, I'm not a fine worker, I'm not even really a competent amateur. I know just enough to get myself into trouble. But despite all this, I think we got a pretty cool little free library right here. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, stop by and check out a book. Until next time, from the Lagoon of Mystery, aloha.